Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Recovery efforts underway in Washington, D.C. following a mid-air collision that killed 67. Plus, the Alberta Premier says Canada should have a border czar to work closely with U.S. And a Taber woman undergoing cancer treatment says she was moved to a Lethbridge Hospital storage room and shares her experience. Thanks so much for joining us. 67 people are confirmed dead following a mid-air collision Wednesday night between an American Airlines passenger plane and a Black Hawk helicopter. 60 passengers and 4 crew were aboard the plane, and 3 soldiers were aboard the training flight on the helicopter before both went crashing into the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. At least 28 bodies were recovered from the river following the accident. There was no immediate confirmed cause of the collision, but officials said flight conditions were clear as the jet arriving from Wichita, Kansas, was making a routine landing at Ronald Reagan National Airport when the helicopter flew into its path. Among the passengers were members of the Skating Club of Boston who were returning from the 2025 U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita. They included teenage figure skaters Jenna Han and Spencer Lane, both teens' mothers, and 2 highly regarded Russian-born figure skating coaches.
6 is a horrific number for us, but we're fortunate and grateful it wasn't more than 6. This will have long-reaching impacts for our skating community. The 2 coaches, Zhenya Shishkova and Vadim Nomov, top coaches. They were the 1994 World Pair Champions, and they came to us in 2017, and were very much a part of our building the competitive skating program here at the Skating Club of Boston.
The National Transportation Safety Board says it won't speculate on what may have happened, but plans to issue a preliminary report within 30 days. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh vowed early on Thursday to force a spring election at the end of March, when Parliament is scheduled to return. But even as he doubled down on his pledge to help topple the Liberal government, Singh called on that government to recall Parliament early to work on legislation to prepare for a possible tariff war with the United States. All 3 main opposition parties have said they intend to bring down the government in a confidence vote at the earliest opportunity. Parliament is currently prorogued until March 24th as the Liberals choose a new leader to replace outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. As the threat of 25% tariffs loom over Canada, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says Ottawa should appoint a border czar to work collaboratively with the United States. She told reporters Wednesday that a Canadian border czar would work with American counterpart Tom Homan to crack down on fentanyl and illegal crossings, something U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly said is a major issue. Smith says she has already put a name forward.
A general. Whoever it is, we've got lots of retired generals. I had a former retired general be my deputy minister, Paul Winnick. I've volunteered his name up, but that's who I think it should be to show that we're serious. Someone who understands military operations, who understands deployment, who understands the seriousness with which we have to take this issue. So I don't know who the federal government has in mind, but that's the kind of person that we need. We're going to see within 39 days, I think, a change in Prime Minister. And then after that, there may be another change in Prime Minister. I think that's why it needs to have an independent person who, with any luck, would be able to withstand changes of government so that we are able to seamlessly ensure that we can work with the Americans on this.
Smith said her government invited American network Fox News to the Coutts border crossing to help demonstrate Alberta's efforts to beef up security. She also says she's pleased the federal government is using Black Hawk helicopters for the RCMP to patrol the border. Patrols recently started in Manitoba and began Wednesday in Alberta. Almost half of Canadian exports to the U.S. that could potentially be hit by tariffs come from just 6 industries. Stats Canada says those include oil and gas extraction and refining, auto manufacturing, aluminum, and aerospace. A 25% tariff applied across the board would increase the cost of the top 6 sectors' exports by more than $148 billion. Walmart Canada says it will spend $6.5 billion over the next 5 years years with plans to open dozens of new stores. The retailer says the investment is the largest it's ever made since entering Canada 30 years ago. New stores in Port Credit and Oakville, Ontario are slated to open later this year, with a new distribution center in Vaughan, Ontario also expected in 2025. Well, dozens of Alberta scientists, doctors, and researchers have penned an open letter calling on the Alberta government to reject the recommendations contained in its recently released pandemic response report. The group, including experts in infectious disease, pediatrics, virology, and immunology, says its essential government policies are based on well-established scientific evidence, and it claims the task force misrepresents the data. The 269-page report, released publicly without notice last Friday, was done by a government-appointed panel and calls for limits on COVID-19 vaccines and for health professionals not to be punished for promoting alternative treatments. Speaking to reporters Wednesday, Premier Smith said critics of the $2 million review are trying to control the narrative, and she said that she doesn't want to see, quote, contrarian voices shut out when reviewing pandemic response measures. A cancer patient who was admitted at Lethbridge's Chinook Regional Hospital recently says she's shocked from what she describes as a, quote, inhumane experience. Rose Roll shared with BCN her experience as a patient when she was moved from her room during treatment to a hospital storage room. BCN's Landon Hickok has more on the story.
Rose Roll has been fighting cancer for the last 4 years and was going to Chinook Regional Hospital for a standard treatment where she needed to be monitored closely at the hospital. But her recent experience ended up being anything but standard.
Thanks so much, Landon. By the year 2046, 1 in 5 Albertans will be 65 years of age or older. And over the next 10 years, the demand for continuing care in Alberta is projected to grow by 80%, increasing even faster as people live longer and with more complex needs. Alberta's government announced a new provincial continuing care agency, Assisted Living Alberta, as part of the province's health refocusing. Jason Nixon, Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, made the announcement today.
Assisted Living Alberta will offer Albertans access to a full range of wraparound services, from medical and non-medical supports, home care and community supports, to housing and social services and other supports. Through Assisted Living Alberta, we will prioritize addressing a person's complex needs of care rather than focusing on simply providing medical care for a particular diagnosis. Assisted Living Alberta will bring together the medical care that Albertans rely on with the power of the social service organizations and nonprofits that provide support to create true wraparound services based on the needs of each Albertan.
As part of the $3.8 billion Canada-wide early learning and childcare agreement on Thursday, the Alberta government introduced flat monthly parent fees for full-time and part-time licensed childcare. Beginning April 1st, parents with children up to kindergarten age attending full-time licensed daycare facilities and family day home programs will be eligible for just over $326 per month, or roughly $15 a day. Parents needing part-time care will pay $230 per month. This means a family using full-time daycare could save on average $11,000 per child per year. The flat monthly parent fee will replace the child care subsidy program for children attending childcare during regular school hours. The subsidy for children attending out-of-school care will not change. Alberta's government says it wants to increase the Alberta Heritage Savings Trust Fund to at least $250 billion by the year 2050. The trust fund started back in 1976 by Peter Lougheed, and it was created to invest a portion of Alberta's non-renewable resource royalties each year, so the investment interest earned in the fund would reduce the province's reliance on resource revenues. For decades, contributions to the Heritage Fund were limited, and investment earnings were spent instead of being reinvested. But on Wednesday, the province announced it's adopting a new plan to grow the Heritage Fund and achieve long-term growth and financial stability for the province.
Many of us know the importance of planning ahead. We all know the value of having a savings account, whether we're actually able to set money aside for it or not. While we manage day-to-day expenses, it's important to know that we are putting money aside for unforeseen expenses, but also for a time when we are retired or potentially lose our income. That's the same motivation at play with our plan for the Heritage Fund. To achieve this, we must prioritize reinvestment of annual earnings that will compound over the long term and achieve meaningful growth year over year.
According to Horner, this year the province expects to bring in approximately $20.3 billion in forecast oil and gas revenues, and this revenue is where they plan to build the Heritage Fund. British Columbia's education minister has fired the entire Victoria School Board in a dispute over a safety plan where the board barred police from schools except in emergencies. Minister Lisa Beer says student safety is at risk in the district, and she has appointed a lone trustee to oversee the district until the next municipal elections set for the fall of 2026. Beer says the appointment is effective immediately, which will clear the way for the completion of a safety plan for the district. She says the government has given the board many opportunities to act, but it has not delivered. If you love the sound of bagpipes, you might get the chance to hear them more often in Lethbridge. The Lethbridge Police Service announced a memorandum of understanding was signed between the service and two local pipe bands to create the Lethbridge Police Service Pipe Band. The Legion Pipe Band and Bridge City Highlanders Pipes and Drums will amalgamate and perform under the LPS umbrella during external and internal ceremonial events.
The band is comprised of police and civilian volunteers who will serve as ambassadors to LPS and continue to promote and grow the traditions of Scottish music in southern Alberta through performance and instruction. Both the Legion and Bridge City Highlanders bands are well known in our community, and we are looking forward to the many opportunities they will have to continue engaging with our citizens under the auspices of the Lethbridge Police Service.
Tom Wilson of the Legion Pipe Band and Scott Sinclair of Bridge City Highlander Pipes and Drums each said that amongst the challenges of bringing in proper numbers to support events, joining together with the LPS will bring certain stability. Well, more than 120 years of Western Canadian history is now available in a collection digitized by the Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village and the University of Lethbridge. The newly digitized Pincher Creek Echo Collection, formerly known as the Rocky Mountain Echo, covers the period from April 1900 to December of 2023. Jake Cameron, Systems Support Specialist at the University of Lethbridge, explains why it's important to have the digitized collection.
Having this in a digital format, not just available to the people at Kootenai Brown Pioneer Village, but the people of Southern Alberta, the people of Alberta, Canada, and the rest of the world, allows people to find research they may never have found or materials they may never have found anywhere else. And it shows the importance of what's happened in Southern Alberta and the history of Southern Alberta. And that's so valuable to researchers and people who are interested in that history.
Just to see such an incredible resource for the entire province and for Western Canada to be put out, and for our museum to be recognized as the progenitor of this entire project, and just for the entire world, for all the inquiries we get that come from overseas and abroad and across Canada, asking inquiries about ancestors and people who were in the area. It just helps our ability to help assist them in their resources and genealogical resources, and to also help authors who are trying to track down quotes or historical factoids and that sort of thing.
Those who wish to access the digitized library, you can check it out at digitallibrary.uleth.ca. Community Conversations is the perfect time for the city to showcase its projects while also receiving feedback from the community. The event also serves as a stage for those looking to educate themselves or simply connect with institutions. Tara Grindle, Communications and Engagement Manager with the City of Lethbridge, explains.
Something a little different is we've staged the projects so the community can understand if it's just launching, and they can give lots of feedback that could still inform the project mid-project, so maybe some decisions have already been made but they could still give some feedback, or if it's at the conclusion of the project, which is mostly we're just informing people then what the feedback was and how we use that for the project. As we get down to like paving roads and the things like that, that gets more technical in what we can and can't do, or what the public might be able to give feedback on specifically. But when we're looking at how do we want to grow the city, right? And that's that land use bylaw project, which is huge, is how do we want the city to grow in the future? And that's really where the residents' feedback can have a lot of impact.
Mobility and accessibility station. So this is kind of some of the stuff that we're doing. And so we have a accessibility and mobility group, and a lot of times we get together, we talk about it, and this is kind of tries to represent, some of the stuff we've done in the past in 24 and stuff that we are going to do in 25.
Very attentive, and lots of people want to learn. We've got props here, so what we're essentially doing is we're just going through a deadly bleed simulation, and we're actually letting the community get hands-on so that they can actually stop the bleed.